Good morning, everyone. Thanks for connecting. My name's Nick. I'm with IU5, the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit, and we wouldn't be here today without Northwest PA Job Connect. So a special shout out and thanks to them. They are the ones that help us bridge these types of connections. And today, this morning, we're going to be talking with a friend of mine, former IU5 employee, Jeff Styborski, and Jeff has transitioned his way up to Erie Insurance. Now, Jeff is the Senior Information Technology Administrator, Infrastructure Administration Operation. Holy smokes, Jeff. We'll talk a little bit more about that title here in a little bit. But I'm going to send you live, Jeff. And then what we're going to do is ask you a couple of questions about, hold on for a second. Let me shift some stuff around as if this is my first one. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to send Jeff live. And there he is. Hey, that's Jeff Styborski. Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about that title of yours? What the heck is that?
Sure. So Erie Insurance, based out of Erie, Pennsylvania, has about, 7,500 to 8,000 employees. And then we keep contractor relationships with another 1,000 or so contractors. So we're just under 10,000 full-time employees and vendor managed relationships. As part of that, the information technology department is about 650 people. And then we use another probably about 150 to 200 contractors, including an entire offshore division over in India. That offshore team helps with 24/7 support, some of our batch data processing, as well as some different consulting services that we utilize and they offer. So with that many folks in the IT department, we're basically split into three towers. We have infrastructure, we have lines of business, and then we also have our finance section. And so all of those titles break down. And so the infrastructure administration is where there's a very special part of us. We're about 120 people. We are the hands-on keyboards, keep the lights on folks. So think of the servers in the back room, the network connectivity, databases, the middleware designed to incorporate data transactions between customer serving systems and our back-end mainframe and databases. And we support all of that. So there's about 120 of us that do that. Then we have special teams that just do desktops, and special teams that just do asset management, and special teams that just do information security. Because there's so many people that do so many different roles, the title really breaks down to how and where you sit in this organization. My particular division, the operations area, is the largest single division in IT. We're primarily composed of administrators, management and leaderships, and then a few analysts and some technicians as well. Because Erie is a Fortune 500 company, HR standardizes many job titles and classes across the board. And so the administrator family is, again, a hands-on keyboard approach. We also have software engineers. Think of them also as programmers. We have analysts, both business process analysts and IT analysts. So they're going to be doing number crunching, meeting organization, sorting out data ins and data outs, and then feeding that up to both the software engineers and the administrators. Of course, we have leadership, we have project managers, and then we have technicians. So think of a technician as someone who would go to your desk and fix your PC or answer the phone when you call. I think that kind of sums up what that title really comprises of.
That's hefty. Let's back up for 1 second. We all understand the concept of insurance, I think, but Erie Insurance, what kind of insurance do they sell primarily?
So Erie Insurance is the 10th or the 9th largest personal property casualty insurance company by product and by volume in the country. So think of auto policies for home, think of business policies for small businesses or even some medium businesses. Think of life insurance, homeowners insurance, fraud protection insurance. Again, mostly centered on personal consumers or small to medium businesses.
So somebody like me, if I wanted to have my house insured in case of a natural disaster or fire, I could purchase insurance through Erie. And
Yes,
so you're working good.
Yes, and I highly recommend you do.
Yeah, I have it. It's just not through Erie. So maybe you can give me a better rate. But behind the scenes, so you're working in the information technology, you're in the operations department, because you said you have lots of employees. How many approximately employees do you have?
So Erie Insurance employs about 7,500 people across 13 states.
Wow. So that's a pretty big company. And so that's why you have quite a few folks in your information technology department. Okay. So that's really useful. So let's transition a little bit to what would you say in your day-to-day is your biggest responsibility? What's taking up most of your time?
So my group, as I said, we're in this huge division. There's 120 of us that are really the hands-on keyboard, keep the lights on from an information technology perspective. My group breaks down even yet again. There are 12 of us that are in charge of what we call server open systems. So anything that runs on a server, we are responsible for hardware, for software, for helping app teams navigate through some of the settings and policies we put on these things. And as part of that, from way long ago, back when Microsoft first entered the IT business, there's a system called Active Directory. And Active Directory is the single source of truth and authentication for all login transactions for everyone in the company, from agents to the business users to information technology users. So we support about 100,000 some accounts that use this system, and any downtime will actually cripple every single one of our systems up and down the stack, as we like to say. So that is probably our biggest responsibility out of my group.
So in terms of if a kiddo was logging into their account at school, their account is archived in an Active Directory somewhere.
Yes.
Gotcha. So you deal with that the majority of the time, and you have hundreds of thousands of folks, whether they're a client or intern, you're helping manage that. Wow, it's quite a big responsibility because you want to have those clients, so people who are buying home insurance be able to seamlessly log in. So let's transition.
I was just saying, just to piggyback on that. So that's probably our most important system that we administer. But from my group, we actually are responsible for something close to 2,400 virtual servers, about 3,000 virtual desktops, and about 400 what we would call hypervisors, which are physical hosts that support these virtual desktops and virtual servers. So we also are responsible for all of the actual hardware inventory on the floor as well.
So when you say hardware, that's something you can actually touch, computer, server. When you talk about something virtual, is that safe to call it cloud-based?
So you can have a virtual cloud, but basically when you talk about virtual anything, you're abstracting the computer and can run multiple computers on one big powerful computer. So where mainframes used to have terminals, kind of the same thing. You have these physical hosts that you can host a number of virtual guests, and you and I might share some memory. We would never know it, but that way we don't have to buy as many resources from a physical standpoint. So it's the abstraction. So when you go out into the cloud, when you talk about cloud computing, of which we do that as well, the cloud computing is the exact same thing. It's abstracted operating systems running on some big, powerful physical host somewhere, but you're just getting to it through some sort of different networking scheme than you would be if you were on premises.
Gotcha. So if it's virtual, it's cloud-based, somewhere there's some kind of tangible hardware that's keeping it up in the cloud.
Always.
Gotcha. So I want to kick it out to our attendees, anybody that's out there, whether you're an educator or a class watching this, you'll notice somewhere on your computer, we're going to ask Jeff some questions once we get towards the end. So you'll see like a little chat icon with a question mark in it. Anytime Jeff's talking, feel free to throw some questions in there and we'll address those at the end. But we're going to transition, Jeff, into the next thing, which I'm a little bit nervous about. I'll be honest. What interested you? What abilities do you have that make you an asset? What do you value? What are your interests in your role?
So that's actually a really great question. Specifically to my role within the organization, again, we have some weighty expectations placed upon us. the way that my group sits within, again, a rather large IT department, we are the nerds that help the other nerds, right? So everybody who's doing something is going to come back and go to us if something isn't working along the chain. So we have to understand networking. We have to understand the actual server discipline that we work in. We understand the integrations with middleware and database, with our production control team, with our storage team and the storage layer. So a healthy curiosity to how things work. Do you like to do puzzles? Do you like to problem solve? Do you like to fix something on your own? Almost all of us have that. We really like to understand holistically how everything works, so that not only can we be experts in our field, but we can kind of coordinate and triage folks in other fields to work better together. So healthy curiosity, attention to detail, and honestly, pride. We love to be in charge of what we do. We love to take responsibility for it. We like to make it better, and we like to make sure it's healthy and working and fully optimized, right? Working the best way it possibly can be. I would say those three things, especially in the operations section of information technology, but really in any part of information technology, absolutely apply. Are you curious? Are you prideful in your work that you want to produce the best result? And are you mindful to detail? And that's really what kind of drives our group forward.
Yeah. Now, minus the pandemic, obviously, you can see you're working from home, but before that, whenever you were in your brick and mortar office or whatnot, would you say your role was more independent work or team approached?
50-50, and I'm not exaggerating. So I do a lot of independent research. I take, so again, our team probably has 13 or 14 systems we support, as well as a number of devices in and out of, physical, virtual, yada, yada. And we all kind of take some sort of ownership, and we generally roll a 2-deep rotation. So like I'm a primary on some things, I'm a backup on some things. There are some systems in my group that I never touch. I have some expertise with them, but they're not really in my day-to-day path. So when it comes to upgrading and maintenance and troubleshooting, a lot of that is independent, hands on keyboard, going to Google, going to other subject matter experts, meetings, and bringing all of that information back. The other half of my day is planning and coordinating and making sure that our junior admins and that our interactions with our customers, whether they be internal or external, the idea behind how are we going to take this system forward, what is the next system we're going to bring in place, that is all collaboration across the board. So it is constantly meeting with people and working with them and through them to accomplish what you need, as well as independent work and being able to pull yourself out, isolate if you have to, and get the data and the answers that you're looking for as part of that work.
That's great, because a lot of times you think that the folks that work in informational technology might just sit by themselves and plug away the computer, but there's always somebody somewhere that you're going to rely on. They're going to rely on you, etc. So without getting too nerdy here, and I know based on all the conversations that I've had with Jeff, he could get real deep, guys, in terms of tech stuff. Lay on us some basic skills, like what do you need to know in terms of maybe some software programming, some server language, something that maybe Nick would understand? Or go deep. I don't care.
So that's actually a really interesting question, in the sense that depending on your specific discipline that you're hoping to do in IT, right? Like you said, Nick, the difference between a server admin and a software engineer, it used to be a huge gap. That gap is kind of closing as we go to more virtual operating systems, as we go to cloud computing, which is sometimes even includes serverless instruction and serverless command, basic scripting and basic flow and process. So think of a flow chart, right? Reading a flow chart and then being able to break that flow chart out into its individual pieces, analyze those pieces, and figure out what code is going to go behind what you're doing, whether it be from a simple scripting language like PowerShell or Bash, or whether you're, doing something intermediary like Python, or even like a C++ or a C Sharp, out in the true software engineering and development world. Being able to sort through logic streams is incredibly important. I would also say troubleshooting, and that curiosity behind troubleshooting, documentation, being able to articulate your thoughts, write them down, write instructions for people, that's huge. And again, just that general curiosity. Doesn't matter what discipline that you think you might find one better, but those are the types of things that you would be interested in to really excel in this field.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always appreciated about Jeff. Used to be a supervisor in IU5's IT department, and one of those things to be able to articulate to somebody like me who doesn't have the experience or the background or the education that Jeff has, to be able to put those into layman terms or things that Nick would understand, so I can troubleshoot on my own. So, and I think Jeff always did a great job with that. And
Thanks.
Jeff, let's talk a little bit about your education. Like, does it require, what kind of educational degree is required in your role, and what do you have?
So I achieved a bachelor's of information systems management from Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
That's a
later on, actually, while at that's a 4-year degree. Yep.
Okay.
A gen ed degree, I think they call it. It was just a bachelor's of education with a focus in information systems management. Later on, achieved an MBA from Penn State University. But I would argue, if you're looking at, or if you have a really strong interest in the truly, like I said, hands-on keyboard, keep the lights on kind of thing, a 2-year tech degree from a 2-year technical school is fine. It honestly, you can do a lot within my discipline with that type of knowledge to start. Clearly, most employers look for 4-year degrees. That's a kind of standard across the industry, kind of resume pre-check. So having a 4-year degree certainly helps. Any more advanced degrees with that aren't really going to set you apart from a resume building skill set when you're talking about kind of, I don't want to say entry-level IT jobs, but when you're talking about the job families and the job classes I had previously mentioned, where you're going to be hands-on keyboard. Clearly, the more education you accrue along your way, the higher chance for a leadership position, or maybe even coming in the door as like a senior position. Those are well within scope. But really, from an operations perspective, 2 years. Heck, if you even go out to Cloud Academy, go out to Khan Academy, and start learning basic programming and basic coding from free internet sources, and you can get really good at them, then just being able to get in an interview and show your portfolio of work, or be able to talk about it, we really prize skill over paper. And I think that's where, in the operations section, the 2-year degree, totally lets you fly. Again, from a resume standpoint, you might want that 4-year degree just to get your interview in. But if you can code, if you are very adept at a specific skill set, employers will listen. Absolutely.
That's great advice. Is that, there's a lot of data out there that shows that the demand for a 4-year degree, it's diminishing, and there's a higher demand for those technical or post-secondary skills, just like you said. So that was my next question was, what would you recommend for somebody watching this if they wanted to kind of like just start to explore? You mentioned Khan Academy. Are there any other free things out there that our kiddos could start to tinker with and to develop coding skills?
So I'm going to go blank on this question. I've been an IT professional for just about 20 years. I started off as a desktop support technician. I then moved to a server administrator, and then, as you mentioned, Nick, took on some leadership responsibilities. I since then moved back as a server administrator and have some leadership responsibilities coming up fairly shortly. So there are, certainly the career of an IT professional can go back and forth. So I've always been busy enough, and I guess for lack of a better term, employed enough that I haven't had to go out and seek those resources. I know Khan Academy is well referenced. I know we have some training opportunities and modules that they throw at us at work. But as far as going out and finding something free, I would start with Google and I would go from there, because I really don't have a lot of reference point there.
Yeah, there's a free one out there for those of you guys listening. Just code.org is the big one that's pushing its way into education. So that's something. If you have aspirations to even dabble into IT, start at code.org. Start at Google. Scratch is another one. So Jeff, last question before we jump into the some Q&A. What's something that you think our audience would find maybe interesting or fun, or something that you were like, wow, that really happened to me?
Well, actually, I'll give two things, because I think this is an important part, especially since, working with you and the IU. I would say from my time at St. Vincent, which was my very first job, worked closely with a group of about 12 people. 11 of them could play musical instruments. Went to the IU, and in our small team of IT staff, 11 of us, I believe 6. Actually, by the time I left, 7 of the 10 there could play musical instruments, or at one time had played musical instruments. And in my team now, which I would say is probably close to 15 or 16, 6 actively play musical instruments, and at one time 12 or 13 had played musical instruments. The correspondence between, or the corresponding correlation, I guess I should say, between being musical and being able to count in 4s and count in 8s translates really well, or just happens to translate really well for information technology professionals. Not sure why, but I would argue that, one, if you're an aspiring musician, or if you're currently doing something with music, don't give that up. One, you'll find a lot of peers and colleagues later on in life, especially in the IT discipline, who still do those things, and two, it really does train the mind and get you into a good place for this type of work. Again, just happened to be something I noticed along the way.
That's really interesting. And what flute, or what instrument do you play?
I play trombone.
Trombone. That's right. I knew that. I heard that. So as we transition, Jeff, one of the questions that always comes up from our audience is, what are some essential, AKA soft skills? This is something that you use on a regular basis to be able to have, whether you're dealing with an internal client or an external client. What are those essential skills you have to have in your role?
Sure. So patience. I mean, you absolutely have to be willing to let someone else present, and even if they're very, very wrong, or they're very misguided around their presentation, you have to be patient with them. Certainly show a level of empathy toward their position and toward where they're coming from, and then be able to focus and redirect that conversation or that discussion back to where it needs to go. Everybody should be heard. Not everybody should be listened to. But so, you really want to skirt that delicate line of knowing that the position is valued and important. However, we appreciate that. We're going to go another direction with this. I think being able to articulate that, to show that, and to not be, for lack of a better term, rude about that, will really get you very far when you work in large organizations or work with customers. Again, the ability to listen, to pull information out, to remember that information, and to be able to then comment back around that information and either regurgitate with what they had said, or to put your particular spin on that in real time, so that your translation between, in my case, IT and the customer who's giving me this, that's very important. Again, being able to work well in teams. So again, collaboration, listening, valuing everyone's opinion. I think that really does play itself a lot in my job. Again, I don't do a lot of writing, but I do a lot of writing and summarizing that go to VPs and SVPs around specific problems or issues or things I'm working with. So being able to write articulately and use spell check, that's it's a lot more writing than you would think. Additionally, in our remote environment, we do a lot of Teams and collaboration, but there's a lot of chat that goes back and forth, and certainly a lot of email that goes back and forth. And then finally, being able to pick data out of a haystack, for lack of a better term. You may get thrown in on a couple email threads that are 20 emails long, and being able to pull out the information you're looking for to get to a tangible, actionable item is important, just like with Google. I always joke that as an IT professional, I spend a third of my day planning what I'm going to do, a third of my day figuring out how I'm going to do by Googling it, and the last third of my day actually Googling it or actually doing it. But being able to, go through some Google search results and pick out the things that are relevant and pertinent based on keywords and their source, the source where that's coming from, is very, very important to try to get through and learn things very quickly.
Yeah, that's great. So blast back. You're maybe 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, somebody in our audience. As parting words for them, what would be a piece of advice you would give them? Not necessarily even if they're interested in IT, just a life.
Yeah, that's a good one. Boy, what 40-year-old Jeff could tell 16-year-old Jeff, man. So, part of I didn't pay a lot of attention in a lot of my gen ed classes in my undergrad, and certainly didn't care and didn't focus. That was probably just as much on me as it was on on those I chose to surround myself with. But really taking those things you want to do and you want to be passionate about seriously when you get the opportunity to learn them the first time is very important. Being curious and going and learning on your own is absolutely critical. I wish I would have done more of that. I believe at the time it was SimCity and Half-Life and Warcraft 2, actually, for any of you in the audience who have ever seen those sitting on someone's shelves, if at all. Those are the type of things that, I had a lot of fun doing that, but I could have spent a little more time. And then finally, not so much as a high school student, even as a college student, but your first job and your first time interacting with your peers, right? The folks who you're going to be working with. Some of them are going to be older. Some of them may be the same age. Most likely, you're not going to work with anyone younger at the first job. You never know. Establish and set yourself as someone who can be depended on, and that they can come to you for things, that you will always get them an answer. And you can only make that negative first impression of when you're having a bad day or you just don't feel like dealing with people one time. And that will really set your reputation at that place of employment. Now, you'll probably have many, many places of employment, based on the way the job market is working today and how many opportunities are really out there. But really establishing yourself as a dependable resource, I think that's huge for that first step in, whether that be a college class or a group teamwork project or even your very first job.
That seems to be a common message from all of the folks we're connecting with, is that when you're entry level, or even what you're doing right now, if you're always there to say, yes, we can figure this out, that positive attitude. We got a question from our audience, Jeff. How many hours are you putting in a week?
So the official stance from Erie Insurance is that I put in 35 hours a week of logged in at my keyboard time. As an IT administrator, I am very, very fortunate that that not only is my job flexible, but my supervisory team is very flexible as well. So, for example, this last weekend, I put 2 hours in from a tree stand while hunting muzzleloader, and was doing a change till 6 o'clock at night. And then not this weekend, but next weekend, I'll be on at midnight doing a change till 4 a.m. That having been said, if I need to go to the dentist, I just go. If I need to go to the doctor, I just go. If I have to go pick up the kids from school, I just go. Again, the expectation is when I'm needed, I am available. And so in a sense, I'm always on call, even though I actually rotate a call rotation with my coworkers once every 7 months. But there is an expectation that if something were to go down, I am available, and my day does not end at 4:30 every day. But there is a lot of flexibility to that, as I kind of previously described or alluded to. Erie is a wonderful place to work, and they do treat their employees very well. Our Great Places to Work surveys really bear that out, not only amongst me, but amongst the other 7,499 folks I work with. So in essence, it's a 35-hour-a-week job with nights and weekends as required, but with a lot more flexibility than just that.
That's true. Yeah, when you're talking about a change, for those of you on the audience, like when there's a lot of things that are upended or updated, Jeff and his team aren't going to do it at peak hours that you or somebody else or clients are going to be using. They have to do it at 12 o'clock at night, so
yes,
peak hour.
I will say, for any of you who have aspirations around information technology, a lot of larger companies use what we call the ITIL framework. So ITIL is a number of prescriptive processes and basically a whole framework for managing IT. And as part of ITIL, the word change, or abbreviated CHG in capital letters, is really around change management. So not only am I putting in the paperwork to notify my teammates and maybe the rest of my operations group about what's going on, but if something I do affects a customer billing system, they can go back and look at our change record, see who did what at what time, and it makes fixing and backing out those problematic entries much easier to do. We have the exact same thing in our software development area. They use releases. Those releases are broken down into features, and those features are broken down into feature tasks. And I'm not even talking about the code snippets. I'm talking about the paperwork that you're doing to publicize and make awareness of those coding snippets. So again, if any of you have interest in IT as a career or field, get to know the ITIL framework. It will help you with your thought process and management, as well as being able to communicate that out to your coworkers and what might be expected of you.
So Jeff, we had another question come in. Without the pandemic, do you have the latitude to work from home, or are you going into your office every day?
So currently, I've been work from home full time since March 11th. Erie Insurance has no plans on bringing us back until at least February 1st, and there's some very strong guidelines around that as well. Because I do touch physical hardware, I am considered an essential employee. I do have permission to go back on campus, as well as cards to or a certificate printed off by the Pennsylvania Department of Labor that if there were curfews in place or stay-at-home orders in place, I am authorized by my company, and because we are considered an essential business, subsequently by the government, to travel to and from work and for essential items in that area. So while I have been primarily from home, my team actually has been rotating shifts on site. We do 1 week every 15 weeks. Just to be on-prem, just in case something were to happen with a piece of hardware and they needed us to be there.
Okay, but so before the pandemic.
Oh, sorry. Yep. So my supervisor allowed 1 week work from home or 1 day work from home a week. So basically 4 out of every 5 days I'd be in the office. For the type of work we do, again, I mentioned there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of meetings. That it just makes things a little easier when you're in person. As I said, all of Erie has been remote since I think we're at 98% remote for a 7,500 member workforce. But every supervisor was different, right? Some supervisors would let you go once every 2 weeks. Some supervisors, my wife, who's a commercial underwriter at Erie Insurance, was able to work from home 2 days a week. So a lot of flexibility there. And most likely after we go back to work from the pandemic, there will be more work from home opportunities to try to limit the amount of bodies in the building at any one time.
That seems to be a trend. Yeah, it took a pandemic for our society to realize that we can be just as effective, if not more effective, from home. So that's great. And Jeff, that kind of wraps up. We don't have any more questions in our queue. And I want to extend a special thanks to you for coming out and devoting some of your time to talking with our educators across Pennsylvania. Is there anything else, any parting words you want to provide for our audience?
Sure. If any educators out there, either at the high school or even at the college level, have any interest, Erie does have a really robust internship and apprenticeship program where we'll take non-IT discipline students with very good grades from their undergrad and bring them into rotations in 4 or 5 different IT disciplines. So think someone might sit in my area and do networking, and then they might go do software coding with a mentor, and then they might go do process analysis from our quality management office, maybe go to information security and look at information security policies. And we basically make that that rotation, and then once kids graduate from that program, they actually come in as full professionals within their job families that they desire. We bring in kids from Rochester Institute of Technology, from Carnegie Mellon, obviously being a localized company, Penn State, Barron, Edinburgh, Gannon. So we do have a lot of students coming in, some from really great IT backgrounds, some from just maybe a mechanical engineering background who wanted to stay around Erie and check out Erie Insurance. So I highly suggest, or would recommend, go on our website. Our talent optimization department, talent and optimization management department has some things around the apprenticeship program and our internship program. Certainly always looking for kids who have an interest or a will to do this. Happy to talk to them.
That's great advice, and it's just www.erieinsurance.com.
That is correct.
That's cool. All right, well, Jeff, thank you so much for connecting with us, and for our audience out there, this recording, we've recorded this and we're gonna post it onto our website. So, Jeff, a special thanks to you as we end this broadcast. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.